Welcome back to Charming Data, everybody. I hope you had a good week. Today we're going to learn all about the Dash Bootstrap Spinner component. This is a component that allows or that tells the user that the web app or dashboard is processing a request that the user has just implemented, usually by clicking on a button or by changing an input field. Without the spinner, it is kind of awkward. It doesn't look professional. Look at this, for example. I click on the button, there's no spinner. The only indication that something is happening is right here, updating. But users usually don't look on the tab on top of the browser. They'll look at the main page and think that maybe your app is broken or the dashboard is not working because nothing seems to be processing. So it is good to add a spinner or any kind of loading component that allows a user to know that your app is processing anything that takes more than a second or two. So we're going to learn how to create different types of spinners like this with a bar, or maybe a dotted spinner like this. We're going to learn how to do change the size of the spinners, how to change another type, and maybe the colors of the spinners using Dash Bootstrap and the regular Dash core components. We're also going to learn how to do a progress bar. We're not going to connect the progress bar to the data and to an update like the spinner is connected. We're only going to go over the format so you see how we can change it. And I'm going to give you later some resources on how you can connect the progress bar to your data through Redis or a different database. Don't forget to open the links below the video because we have there all these links that we're going to use in this video, and we have the code that I put there for you, so it'll be easier for you to follow along and do pretty much everything that I am doing. Okay, so the data we're going to use is data from this Excel sheet, also under the video, green trip data 2019. It's all the green taxes in New York. Make sure that this Excel sheet that you download is in the same folder as this Python file is as well. See, I have the spinner bar here, and I have the green trip CSV document inside the same folder. All right, then you want to import these libraries. If you don't have them installed, just open your command bar, and let me close this out. Open your command bar, prompt, or your terminal, and just do pip install in here or inside your environment, pip install dash bootstrap, or pip install pandas. Those are the three things you have to install, and all of these libraries will come with them. Okay, so let's call our CSV into a pandas data frame. Let's say that we're only going to have a ticket total amount, a dollar amount over 0, because the data has also tickets, or not tickets, but taxi rides that cost less than 0. So obviously it's a mistake and the data is dirty. So we're only going to have over $0, and we're only going to have 150,000 rows and not all 600,000 rows, so it doesn't take too long. Okay. So then we're going to start our Dash app, as you've seen, and we're going to add an external style sheet. We're going to add a Lumen Dash Bootstrap theme. If you want a different theme, just click on this Bootstrap website, and then just go to the themes here, and just put any other theme that you want. Just make sure that it is capitalized, that the letters here are capitalized. All right, and now we're going to go into our app layout. Our app layout, this main div, is where everything is what you're telling the app what's going to be on the page. All right, so we're going to say we're going to use the Dash Bootstrap component row to have, and we're going to put the spinner and the graph in it. We're going to have 3 different rows, as you can see here. Let's close this, make this smaller. You see here we have 3 rows. We have the graph, we have the input and the button, and we have the progress bar. So here we have 1 row with the graph and the spinner. Then the second row has the input button, input field, and the button. And the third row has the progress bar. If you want to learn more about how to manipulate or manage rows and columns and this width of the columns, just go into the video above where it talks about the layout of Bootstrap, and you'll learn all about how to create this. But it's fairly simple. All right. So in the first row, we're going to put a spinner. We're going to put the Dash Bootstrap component spinner, and these are all the values of the spinner we're going to go over. And then in the second one, we're going to go over this later, and the progress bar will go over last. And the callback here is what ties everything together. It's going to tie the spinner and the button to the graph. So if I click on this, it actually activates the spinner and the graph is loaded. This all happens with this callback section. We'll go over that towards the end of the video. Okay, one important note over the documentation. DBC means I'm using a dash bootstrap component. dcc means I'm using dash core component. The main difference is just two different websites. This dash dbc is this dash bootstrap component, and we'll go into the spinner here, right here, and this is what you get. So these are the type of spinners that you get with dash bootstrap component. And then later we'll see the dash core component, that DCC, where we're going to use different spinners with DCC loading. All right, this is this line right here that we're going to use later. So just to make sure that you're not confusing the two documentation, one is from regular dash core components, the other one is from Bootstrap. It's important. All right, let's go over the spinner. Let's see how we are, what we can do with the spinner. Take a look at this. Passenger, click on this, and you'll see it's blue, it's circling, and it's about this size. You have all these different values, right, that you can change. Let's play around with them. Let's change from large to small. This will be the size of the spinner. From color, let's change it from primary to success, and that will be, I think, green. And instead of border type, let's put grow. Full screen, you can put true or false. We'll just leave it as true. So now if I save it and I run it again, let's see what happens when it loads. Now if I run it, you'll see it's green, it's growing, and it's smaller than what it used to be. So, and it's still full screen, it takes up the full screen. So all these values you will see, or keyword arguments, are inside here, the spinner dash bootstrap at the very bottom. If you go to this website under the video, all these keyword arguments are here. I summarized some of them for you and put this on this Word document. These are probably the ones that you'll use the most. Size, you have 3 different options. We had large, and then we changed to small. Color, you have all these options, right? The warning, the danger, and you can also add a hex color if you want instead of these. So let's give an example. Instead of success, we'll just add this color right here. Oh, don't forget the hashtag color right here, and you'll see that this is typically this is a yellow color. So when we load it in a sec, you'll see it's yellow. You have this color, you have type, only has 2 types, grow and border, nothing more. Full screen, and then you have these 2 keyword arguments that we're going to go into right now. See how it's yellow here? This is the new one, the new hex color that we just put in there. Okay, so let's change this back to the regular primary color. Okay, and now let's look at this keyword argument. This keyword argument, one second, right here, is called spinner style. Spinner style is allows you to apply CSS to your spinner using an internal dictionary, meaning you have to use these curly brackets, which is obviously like a dictionary, and then you can put anything you want in it. So I'm just saying that the width of the spinner is going to be 10 REMs and the height is going to be also 10 REMs, so that's a little bit bigger than the normal size. If I'm doing this, obviously take out the size component because you don't need, they're going to contradict each other. We're only going to have this spinner, size inside the CSS. And now if I load it, you'll see that the size is going to be 10 REMs and 10 REMs. Let it load for a sec. Okay, so now see how it's a lot bigger. That's a 10 REM. So you can change, I change width and height, but you can change anything you want if you know what you're doing with CSS. You can change the layout or the design of the spinner. All right, let's bring the size back. Another thing you can do is change the spinner class name. Spinner class name is something that is used, like I say here in the documentation, to apply a CSS that applies to the spinner. So it's just like this one, but you have to use an external CSS file that is in your assets folder. So you have to make sure that in the project where you have your Python code, this code right here, you got to make sure that you have an assets folder, spell it correctly, or you will go crazy. And inside the assets folder, I created a CSS doc file called Spinner Styling, right here, Spinner Styling, and I copy pasted some CSS into this file. Doesn't matter, you can call it whatever you want, but it is important that you remember this right here. So let's go back to the code. We see that this is a Spinner class name, and I added this Spinner. Why did I add this string Spinner? Because I took this information from this website right here. It's also under the video, and this is the Spinner that I would like. Somebody wrote a CSS code for it, and this is a source code right here. So I just copy pasted this into the CSS file that you saw before, and I see that the div class is Spinner. So because the div class is Spinner, I put Spinner right here, and now if I run it, you'll see the same. You should see the same thing. Make sure that if you add CSS externally, that you take these out, because you don't need a type border, you don't need a color. That is all controlled by the new CSS, information that we put in this CSS file. So they don't contradict each other. Just make sure to take it out and only put the Spinner class name. Unless you know what you're doing with CSS, and then you can have both of them in there and try to manipulate both of them. But now that you load it, we'll see that you see it goes like this and it goes like this. This is a circle, which I'm not sure, because in this component right here, it was a square. So I can't remember, before the video this was actually a square. I don't remember why this changed, but anyway, this is how you would implement a Spinner class name. You just add the string to it that belongs to the div class. This is only if there's only one div class. I wouldn't try these out, because if you look at all the other CSS forms, it has other classes inside the div class that you would have to also add to your class name, and then it gets kind of messy. Unless you know what you're doing with CSS, this is the simplest way to do it, only if you have one CSS class right here. Okay, so now you learned all about the Spinner class name and how to add external CSS. Another thing we can do, let's see if we finished everything. Yeah, so this was a Spinner, and we went over all the keyword arguments inside the Spinner. If you want, there's not all of them, it's most of the keyword arguments. If you want to see more keyword arguments, just go into the Bootstrap website, and you'll see there's a few more keyword arguments, mainly to add some more CSS styling if you're good at CSS. If not, just use the default ones that are under type, size, and color. All right. In addition to the Bootstrap Spinner, or instead of that, we can also use a DCC loading spinner. Remember, this is a core component spinners that Dash has, and this comes from this main Dash website under the core components loading component. So here you'll see that this is a DCC loading, and there's all the way down, there's different keyword arguments that core components use. So it's two different things. There's core components and there's Bootstrap component. So let's see how we work with the core component. To do the core component spinner, just copy paste this all the way here. And instead of the DCC spinner, let's add the core component spinner, which instead of saying spinner, it's called loading. So you see dcc.loading. Again, same thing. You need the graph inside the children of the loading component of the spinner. And then here are the different keyword arguments that you can manipulate. So now, if you did this, now you have access to different types of spinners. This type is dot, but remember you have in the core component loading, you have types that are graph, cube, circle. You have more options. And now because we did that, if we go in there, you'll see that we chose dot. So this is the loading component for dot. If you change it to cube or circle or default, you'll see a different type of spinner. Okay, these are some of the keyword arguments that are probably most commonly used, at least by me. So here is a summary for them. Again, don't confuse this with this. This is a spinner from Dash Bootstrap, and they use the spinner style keyword argument. This keyword argument does not exist in DCC loading. This one is actually style. It's exactly the same thing, but it's spelled differently. Okay, you can read more about it under the keyword arguments inside this website in the Dash core components. All right, so now let's see how we actually connect the spinner to the graph and to the button and to the input. Because if you don't have this part of the callback, what do you call it? Decorator, then it doesn't connect anything. This won't work without this part. Okay, so briefly, we have the input field. The input field is right here, as you can see. And we're saying in the input field that you're going to have max six numbers, and it's going to go from 1 to 6. That's why you have type number, minimum 1, all the way to 6, max 6. It goes step by 1, so it's not 1.5 and 2.5. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the initial value in there by default is going to be 1. This is Dash Bootstrap component input. You can read more about it under the Dash input, the Dash Bootstrap component input right here. Click on that, and you'll see at the bottom all the keyword arguments that you can play around with. Again, this is going to have a width. This column is going to have a width of 2, so that's why it ends right here. It's only about 2 columns, and then we have the button right next to it with 0 clicks for the beginning. It's going to be called passengers. And the ID is going to be loading button. You need to remember the IDs because this is what you use to connect them in the callback decorator. All right, let's go. Now let's connect them. I'm always excited about the connecting part because this is where all the magic happens. So connecting the callback. All right, let's close this and see how we connect it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments under the YouTube video. I'll try and answer all the questions about connecting and anything if you don't understand this video. Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe so you get more of these cool videos. All right, the callback. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to put in as an input, we're going to take the loading button, the ID of the button, and we're going to take the end clicks. The component property is going to be end clicks, which is 0 at the beginning. And we're also going to take the state of passenger count. Passenger count was the input field. And we're going to take the value of it. So we're going to take the number 1 right here. This will be changed by user, but right now it's number 1. So we're going to take that. And since we have input and state, we have to put inside the function, the callback function, we got to put those 2 arguments. You can call them whatever you want. I chose to call it end clicks, and then passenger numbers, which refers to this. And then we're going to play around with the data, do something inside of it, and then we're going to return, whatever we return here is going to return inside of here. So we're actually going to return a figure, a dictionary figure, inside the component property figure, which belongs to the loading output. What is this? This belongs to right here, the graph, right? So this ID actually has a figure equals empty dictionary, and we're going to put whatever we return is going to go inside of here, blah, 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 blah. All right. So let's see let's break this down. We're saying if end clicks, if the user clicks on the button, then do this. If not, if there's no clicks, like when we first load the page, just return plotly express histogram where the data frame is filtered with passenger count column that has the passenger number, which is right now is number 1. So just filter the data frame and use that data frame and use the x-axis, you're going to plot the total amount. So when we do that and we run the app, when we load the app, the user did not click on the button, so it's loading this section of the callback. And it's loading a number 1 because that's in there by default. And it's giving you the total amount of taxi fares and the amount of taxi fares, and then the dollar amount on average for each taxi fare. So you'll see that on average, we're talking about what, $7 to $8 per taxi fare when there is one passenger in the taxi. You can change that to 2 or 3 or 4, and you'll see different taxi fares and the average amount. All right, so this is we do not click on the button. But if a user clicks on the button, if the user clicks on something, this is what happens. So what we're doing is we're just filtering the data frame to get the passenger number. So the passenger count column has this passenger number, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. This depends on what the input is. Let's get that back. Okay, this is exactly the this is doing exactly the same thing as this. These are exactly the same lines of code. But we're going to make a copy of the data frame. You never want to, you always want to make a copy of the data frame. And then you're going to return the figure, which is going to be the plotly histogram. Same as this one right here. You're going to have the DFF as your data frame. The x-axis is going to be the total amount. This is the title. You're just going to put the title in the middle of the x-axis, in the middle of the graph. And then you return the figure. So this is going to go inside the output, inside here, which refers to this one right here. Okay? So that way, when you actually click on a button, let's go to number 1, it activates the spinner. Now, important to make note of the fact that the spinner, or here the DCC loading, doesn't have an ID. It does not have an ID. The graph has an ID, and because the graph is inside the spinner or the loading component, the spinner is automatically activated when a user clicks on the button. So this is very important to remember. This is the most important thing of the spinner. Whenever you have a loading spinner, or this, depends on which one you use, you can choose whatever you want, Bootstrap or Dash Core component, you need to have the spinner or the loading component wrap the graph or the div or any component that the user will be waiting for the loading to happen. So if we know that the user is going to click on a button, and by clicking on a button, they're waiting for a graph to be loaded, then that graph has to be inside the spinner. That graph is wrapped by the spinner. Same thing with loading. If they're waiting for a div and script to be loaded, then that script and div has to be inside of the children of the spinner. All right? Okay. Perfect. So just let me know if you have any questions under the video, and I'll try to help out if you get stuck somewhere. So now that we did the spinner, now let's look into the progress bar. You can read all about the progress bar right here, and the keyword arguments for the progress bar, which is right here inside the components of the Dash Bootstrap. Now, the progress bar, we're just going to look into how to format it or design it. We're not going to connect it to the data, and I'll explain why at the end. So these are the different values that you can, or keyword arguments that you can change inside a progress bar. You see here, the progress bar is not wrapping anything. It's not like the spinner that wraps a graph. It stands on its own. So these are the different values. I also summarized them here. You'll see the progress bar right here with the different keyword arguments and the different options you have for each keyword arguments. Value, this string refers to this string right here. You see how it says 25? This is what that refers to. Obviously, in almost all cases, this is going to be the same as value because they have to be, well, they have to be the same to make sense. This value 25 refers to the color and what stage of the color that the bar has reached. So obviously, max will be 100%, so 25 will be 1/4 of it, so it's right here. Max, we say it's going to be 100 of the value. It won't go over 100. Strip true, which is why you see a strip bar and not a regular solid bar. Color success is green. Remember, you have all these different colors if you want to change them right here. And then you have one final component. You have style, so you can style the progress bar. You can style the width or the height or anything else if you know CSS. Just use that inside of a dictionary with values and keys. Okay, so that's the progress bar. Play around with these, see how you can manipulate them. Go into the Dash Bootstrap and see all the different things you can also do with it. You can also add some multiple progress bars. You can add them as like one next to the other, depending on how you want it to look like. And you can also animate the thing here, the progress. Now, a progress bar is different than a spinner because a spinner is activated as long as the app is processing the user request, right? So I'm processing the user request. The button is just activated, and then it just stops whenever the process is complete. A bar has to calculate how long it takes for the process to finish. Let's say it takes 2 seconds, and then it has to slowly increment 20%, 40% until it reaches 100 when according to those 2 seconds or 3 seconds. So because you have to calculate the amount of time, you cannot use it as a spinner. You have to use it with maybe Redis or any other type of database that allows you, or server that allows you to do a task queue. If you want to learn how to do this, I'm going to share this with you. This is code that Tom built for exactly that. He built this Dash website using Redis and a task queue, where it takes any string that you put in there, and it turns everything into capitalized uppercase letters. And while it's calculating how long it takes, and while it's processing the request, it's actually moving the progress bar up. But you have to use Redis for that. You have to use Postgres as well. So if you want to learn all about that, here is a perfect example code of how to do it. And hopefully you can do this on your own if you know a little bit of Redis. Okay, I hope you benefited from this video. I hope you learned a lot. If you did, click the like button, share this video with others, and subscribe below and turn on your notifications so every Saturday you get a new video about cool things that you can do with Dash and Dash Bootstraps and data visualization. Keep practicing, never give up, and most importantly, we're better together, so always help people out with other stuff that they need and other dashboards. Have a good day.